Welcome to Communication 24/7, a podcast where we communicate about how we communicate. I'm your host, Jennifer Furlong. So you want to be a better communicator, huh? You're probably thinking you want to be able to influence others, win an argument with your spouse, negotiate your salary, deliver an amazing pitch to potential investors. Maybe you want to be popular, win others over. Those are all great goals, but in order to get there, there are some basic fundamentals to communication that we got to get through first. After all, communication is a skill just like any other skill. You got to practice at it to get good at it. And this is true whether you're talking about having effective conversations with others, or being a good listener, or presenting a memorable TED Talk. We have to cover the basics. And in order to do that, we need to have a little heart-to-heart about whose responsibility is it to make sure miscommunication does not occur. In short, when miscommunication happens, whose fault is it really? Well, the quick answer, it depends. But likely, it's your fault regardless. All right, let me explain. Look, being a good communicator requires you to first understand that good communicators understand the power of being a good communicator. When you learn that you can impact the world around you, that you can impact change, that you can create and maintain positive and lasting relationships just as easily as you can demolish and kill those relationships, you understand just how powerful your communication skills are. So here are some basic tips to keep in mind as we start this journey together. Number one, and if this is the only thing you take away from today's podcast, that is okay. Just remember this. The message you send is not necessarily the message received. Okay, I'm going to say it again. The message you send is not necessarily the message received. It's your job as the communicator to make sure that when you provide information to another person or a group of people, that you're sending it in a way that they will understand it accurately. So if you're the person sending a message, then the responsibility of making sure it's delivered accurately and effectively is yours. Learning how to do this is, of course, one of the reasons for this podcast, so stay tuned. All right, number two, what if you're not the one sending the message? What if you're the recipient? You're the listener. Well, you probably guessed it. Yep. If miscommunication happens, it can still be your fault. Look, as the listener, you have the responsibility of making sure you're focused, you're keeping an open mind, you're not prejudging, and you're using the correct listening style. Yes, there is such a thing as using the wrong listening style, depending on the topic and the situation, your previous experience, and your relationship with the other person who's speaking. So if you're the person receiving a message, then the responsibility of making sure it's received accurately and effectively is yours. Learning how to do this is also a reason for this podcast, so more to come later on that. Number three, you cannot control how anyone else behaves. You cannot control what anyone else says, but you can control your own actions. You can control what you say. You can control how you respond. So this is what it means to be a good communicator. Understanding that regardless of what is going on in the world around you, you have a responsibility to respond in a way that will create an effective communication atmosphere. Now listen to me very carefully for this next part. That does not mean that you have to be positive all the time. It doesn't mean that you have to be nice all of the time. Effective communication does not mean that you cannot be honest, right? I mean, you can be honest, but the first step in learning how to do this effectively is knowing that you and you alone are responsible for your own actions and reactions, and that those actions and reactions can make all the difference in how the next few minutes of your life play out. And number 4, this is my final point. Keep in mind that knowing how to use communication tools effectively is not a fail-safe. Does learning these tools help you in your personal and professional relationships? You betcha. Does it mean that you'll never get into another argument ever again in your life? That's going to be a big fat no. You are an imperfect human being who is dealing with other imperfect human beings. This means that you're going to screw up. They're going to screw up royally on a daily basis. So no, listening to this podcast will not somehow magically solve all of your problems, but it will help you learn some tools to help you more effectively navigate through some of your more challenging situations. Understanding these rules is the first step in becoming a better communicator. Peter Parker, you know him as Spider-Man, was told by his Uncle Ben one time that with great power comes great responsibility. And that's exactly what effective communicators understand. Once you really get it, that you have had the power all along, and to really pay attention to the part you play in every communication scenario, whether that be as the person speaking or as the person who's listening, that is when you really become empowered to influence others and to impact the world around you. If you like this content and want to hear more, please consider becoming a patron at www.patreon.com/COM247. That's COMM247. Or you can always buy me a coffee, because you know I love coffee, at www.buymeacoffee.com/COM2477. That's COMM247. Or if you just want to give a small donation to make sure that this podcast continues, trust me, nothing is too small. You can always cash at me at COM247. You all have a great rest of your day.